Beneath the surface of global power struggles lies a little-known but critical battlefield: rare earth elements. These metallic minerals are invisible to most of us, but they are essential to the technologies that define modern life and military strength. From the vivid screen of your smartphone to the stealth systems of an F-35 fighter jet, rare earths power it all. Yet, despite the United States' technological strength and the world's largest defense budget, the country actually depends on its rival China for approximately 80% of these minerals. This is not merely an economic dependency, it's a strategic vulnerability that will shape national security and foreign policy for the years ahead. I'm Afzal Ahmed, and this is Aloud from TRT Global Podcasts. This show brings you TRT Global articles made for audio. In this episode, we've adapted the article titled Critical Minerals, Critical Choices: America's Hidden Vulnerability in the Rare Earth Race by Burak, published on June the 4th, 2025. Rare earth elements, or REEs, are a family of 17 metals. Their names such as neodymium, terbium, praseodymium, and yttrium may sound very unfamiliar to the general public, but these materials are indispensable to modern technology. Despite the name, they aren't actually rare in the Earth's crust, but their extraction is complex, costly, and environmentally hazardous. These materials power the magnetic motors in electrical vehicles, enable precision guidance in missiles, and are key components in medical imaging devices. For example, an F-35 fighter jet contains about 420 kilograms of rare earth metal, and wind turbines use tons of neodymium-based magnets, and even your smartphone's vibrant display relies on yttrium and terbium. In this sense, REEs form the invisible but important backbone of the modern world. China's rise to dominance in this sector is no accident. Starting in the 1980s, Beijing made a strategic bet by investing heavily in rare earth mining and processing infrastructure. Western nations, deterred by the environmental damage and high costs, scaled back their own production. By the 2000s, China had managed to drastically reduce production costs through low labor wages and lax environmental standards.
The US started winding down its facilities, and China really stepped in there. It saw an opportunity to produce them. It's quite labor intensive, so economically, profit margins for producing these materials is very low, and China was available. China said, right, we'll produce them, and the rest of the world said, hey, if China's producing them, we don't need to.
That's commodities specialist Jason Kaplan. Processing rare earths produces toxic waste, radioactive byproducts, and heavy metal contamination. Regions like Inner Mongolia have experienced severe ecological damage from this process, including polluted rivers and devastated farmland. Indigenous communities that live near mining sites, such as the Inuit in Greenland's Kavinafiel deposit and Navajo and Apache lands in the US, have voiced concerns over environmental degradation and cultural impacts of processing rare earths. The implications are far-reaching. When China cut off rare earth exports to Japan in 2010 during a diplomatic dispute, it sent a clear message about the power behind these minerals. Similarly, in 2025, China imposed new export controls on key rare earths like neodymium and dysprosium, elements vital for electrical vehicles, wind turbines, and defense technology. A 2024 analysis by the RAND Corporation warns that a supply chain disruption lasting just 90 days could force 78% of US defense contractors to shut down production lines. This raised alarms in Washington and allied capitals. Donald Trump's controversial 2019 proposal to buy Greenland may make more sense in this context. Greenland sits on massive deposits of heavy rare earths in places like the Kavina Field mine, which attracted Chinese investment before environmental concerns stalled development. Similarly, Canada possesses rich rare earth resources. Chinese investments in Canadian mining companies have sparked fears in the US of indirect Chinese control over these critical materials. Associate Professor Julie Klinger, who studies the geopolitics of development and resource usage, offers nuance.
The point that I do want to emphasize, though, is that although much of the critical upstream parts of the supply chain are located within China, that is a space that is populated by international firms and actors as well. And so although there is a sort of country-to-country geopolitical competition, in practice, from an industry and business standpoint, the supply chains are quite well integrated through and across China, with Chinese and international actors playing in that space. And that's a level of nuance that I think is important to ground these geopolitically charged discussions around the supply chain.
To reduce dependency, the US is ramping up domestic production. Projects like the Round Top mine in Texas aim to supply 20% of US demand by 2027. International partnerships with Australia's Linus Corporation and the EU's Resilience Initiative are also seeking to diversify sources beyond China. And recycling programs like Apple's Daisy robot that recovers about 98% of rare earths from old phones offer promise, but remain small scale. Yet the challenges remain daunting. Rand Corporation estimates it will take at least a decade to build a self-sufficient supply chain. While rare earths have become a new flashpoint in US-China competition, this story is part of a larger historical arc. In the 20th century, the fight was for oil. In the 21st century, it's for semiconductors, critical minerals, and supply chains. Rare earths are now the silent enablers of modern power and the ammunition of a new Cold War. The question now is whether the US and its allies are willing to confront the environmental costs, invest billions, and commit decades to rebuilding what was given up. The alternative, continued dependence on a geopolitical rival that has already proven willing to weaponize its monopoly. That's all for this episode. Thank you for listening. This Aloud episode was an adaptation of an article on TRT World.